It's 6 o'clock, so let's just get started. We'll dive into it. It's 6 o'clock, and welcome to the Beaver Network. I'm Trudy Sixberter, the host of Indigenous Matters, and tonight we are going to talk about everything because it's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to host a show. I've been on the road a lot. I was in 4 provinces in 6 days, and it's been crazy. We had an election. Now we have new legislation in Alberta that's riling things up and making things a little spicy between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people in Alberta. So I just want to talk about all of it. So everybody, come on up. Let's have a chat. I missed you all. I haven't seen you for so long. My device is charging, so that's why I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit. I have to hold it. So
I've seen the video you posted. How are things with those people going on your land and making all the noise with their equipment?
Well, they mostly just go like I only have an acre and a half here, there's bigger landowners around me. But these are the neighbor kids. They just go in front of my place a lot, and then they go behind my house on another property owner. They've been actually quiet since the videos have started, and especially because I tagged one of the mothers got in my comments and kind of made a subtle threat. So I tagged the RCMP, and she took her comment down. Well, she even got in the comments now and said, I'm going to start making a ATV and bike track on my property. And it's not even her property, but I don't want to talk I don't want anyone to think I'm talking about them or anything. But yeah, it's been interesting living out here. I remember, I've always heard how rural Alberta can be, and I've seen it myself. Like I remember one time when I was still working at Indian Affairs in the late 90s and early 2000s, I had to go out for a meeting. I think it was with Alexis First Nation. And the gentleman I was meeting suggested a little coffee shop that's off the reserve. So I went there, and the minute I walked in the door, the whole place went silent. Those, and I'm sure you've all experienced it too, right? And it was my first real exposure to how it can be in rural Alberta when you're Indigenous. But because I grew up in Calgary, nice to see your face. So I don't know. I hope we can change that relationship. It's really awful that we have to not like each other. I don't want to not like my neighbors, but they don't like me just because, hey, look at all these handsome faces. Nice clean haircuts. Geez, you guys, are you enlisting?
We're just flexing on the long hairs here.
Looks like you guys are getting ready for battle.
Yeah. Well, you gotta make sure they can't grab anything, right? So
I did some research into the blueberry First Nations case. That's amazing. Like that precedent, and I remember you had mentioned it, but I didn't really look into it till like a couple days ago. Like I did a deep dive into it and really got to know what it's about, and it's really extraordinary.
I didn't know about the blueberry case until I heard it from somebody. I won't mention it.
And
just follow my finger.
Yeah.
The beauty of it, though, is it will inform the Beaver Lake case. It's a precedent. It's been set. And so maybe the delay in having the Beaver Lake case heard is a blessing in some way, because now this precedent's been set. No, BC didn't appeal it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, I really suspect that Alberta told BC to not appeal it because they didn't want it to get fast-tracked through the court system, because they're dragging their feet on Beaver Lake, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to go to court next year. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they're hoping to have it finalized here so Gary Layman's got 2 years left on his term, and they're hoping to have it finalized before the next election, because you never know what's going to happen with an election, So they're hoping to have it finalized, and it's definitely good. It sounds like it's going in Beaver Lake's favor.
That's awesome.
I'm sure of it too.
I know you'll win, because we always win in the Supreme Court. Never
We
once.
do. We do. Almost always. Sometimes not every provision is granted to us, but almost always the Supreme Court of Canada finds in favor of the Indigenous plaintiff or claimant. And so
my band today did a press release, My Nation Big Stone, that cease and desist order to the premier about the Alberta separation. So they're going about, it's about our treaty rights. All the treaties are united in Alberta against the separatist movement.
Right.
Thank you. And I went to the protest on the weekend.
Oh, I've seen the videos of it. That's amazing. Yeah.
I was only there for a
Really
short
like-
bit. There was a lot of, it gives me anxiety, right? And my daughter and my husband too. But we went, and there were hundreds, which, so take that in mind, how many millions live in this province.
Yeah.
There were only hundreds of people there that want to separate.
Right.
But they were kind of vile to us. Like, I got on the microphone for a minute, and this guy was yelling at me, "How about you pay your taxes?" And, just stuff like that.
You should have yelled at. You should have yelled back at him like, "Taxes on my own land." Okay, that sounds.
Yeah.
The landlord paying rent on his own building. Like, way to go.
How to pay your rent,
Yeah. Right?
God.
Yeah.
There's so many right-wing racists in Alberta. It's like, God, I don't know. It's
Yeah. Like, something like this comes out, Indigenous people, we flex our rights and they get butthurt.
Yep. Truly. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sad.
Yeah. And that's, I want to reiterate, that's not to paint them all with the same brush.
No.
There's bad apples in every bunch.
There's some beautiful, wonderful people in this
Oh,
province.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I see them. They come into all of our comments and, talking back with us in our videos and stuff. And it's
Well, we
just
got-
that the ones that
We got
aren't
friends
are
like
loud.
we got friends like Sojin and Johnny and Moist Cake and,
Yeah.
the list goes on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Dr. Angela Grace, she's a
Yeah.
great ally here in Alberta, and Time for Change in Alberta is another really good ally for us. And
Yeah.
hey, you're not drinking the good old Pepsi. I'm a Coke drinker too. You're muted.
And I only drink Coke Zero because it has no sugar.
I like Coke better than Pepsi.
There's Pepsi Zero,
Is there
Yeah,
really?
I've tried it, the different flavors, but I just kind of.
I'm revoking your Indigenous card because until you start drinking Pepsi, I'm not giving it back. I just revoked your indigeneity.
I actually have I don't know if you can see that. I have actually the shirt.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It's like a hoodie.
The Pepsi hoodie.
I should put that on here.
My twin's making tumblers. People are ordering tumblers that say that, and I said, "You better be careful. They might the Pepsi company might get wind of that and be like, you can't do that."
Right. So
Yeah.
I see we've got like 12 people in the room. Anybody else that wants to come up, we can kind of I wanted to just have an open discussion today because I haven't seen y'all for so long, and lots has happened. So much has happened. It's insane. I thought after the election we were going to get a nice little break, a little breather, and then whammo bammo, we got Bill 54.
What's Bill 54?
That's that one. Okay.
Oh, that's what that separate. Okay, that's what it is.
It's not necessarily, it's the voting. It's to have a referendum, and she's changed. They wrote changes into it that they won't put polling stations on reserve or Métis settlements. So it's going to make it harder for First Nations and Métis to vote.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's disenfranchising us again.
I'm gonna. He shows that bottle again. I'm gonna.
You're so funny.
I'm gonna report him.
I got my nippy. I'm on nippy today. But so I'm really proud of our chiefs. We've got so many chiefs that are writing letters to Danielle Smith. Did either of you hear her address to the province at 3:00 today?
No, I didn't hear it. What happened?
I was me and Schmarcy were trying to listen to it, but she was having some audio problems. I didn't catch all of it.
It was I didn't catch it all either. I had to catch the recap on CBC because I
Yeah,
was
Schmarcy tried to play it for me, but
Okay.
she was having some audio problems.
This Danielle Smith is very upset. Okay. Because that
What
it is
else
my
is new?
actual name.
What else is new with Danielle Smith? She's always upset.
No, but I'm actually named Danielle Smith, not the same person. However, it has been problematic lately.
I'm sure.
You say share the same name as her, and Lisa
I
shares the same face as her.
Oh gosh, I have to tell you, there have been occasions where it has been somewhat problematic. I mean, I got asked to leave a Boston pizza when she crossed the floor. People
Wow.
with me when they thought I was a member of the media because she was a journalist prior to being a politician. And of course, when she became the premier, I don't know how many people had texted me or emailed me asking what I was going to do as the official premier. But now that she's pretty much a traitor, I want nothing to do with her. And quite honestly, her actual legal first name is Marlena.
Yes.
What
Right.
exactly?
So we'll call her Marlena going forward.
Yeah.
Because we don't if she can't let everybody else use their preferred names, then we're not going to let her use it.
But that's not even better though. Like that's just feeding into the fire, right? Because you got to think of like, how do I say this? That woman looked like she was holding a knife and fork, eating something that wasn't even there. And oh my Jesus, like what the fuck is wrong with this woman? I'm watching this and I'm like, oh no, like just can't. Oh yeah, threw Ottawa under the bus, threw everyone else under the bus, but can't take responsibility.
Did you see they showed her reaction after
Yeah.
MLA Arkan Paul explaining Section 35 to everybody and how First Nations are. He was on the floor of the legislature talking about how Indigenous people can, full stop. You can't, once they say no, that's going to be the end of it.
I didn't see that.
She kind of sat back and she threw her pen.
Yeah.
I'm so and when Brooks Arkan Paul, they tabled that Reconciliation Implementation Act, and all of the UCP government voted against it, the UCP MLAs. Shame on Rick Wilson. Rick Wilson is the Minister of Indigenous Relations, and he's supposed to be, I know he has to represent his constituents, but he also should be honoring the relationship that Alberta has with Indigenous people.
But he's the minister. His
If
responsibility
he's the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, his first job is to the title that was given of Indigenous Affairs.
Exactly. It's his responsibility to look out.
He was given that title, and that's what his first, if you want to use the word loyalty, should be.
He's laughable. He's a fool.
I think most of the politicians in the United Conservative Party are laughable.
So it's so funny because I have friends who still, because I worked in industry myself, and I have friends who still are in industry. And Rick Wilson came to a gathering of industry representatives, and he told them that he basically grew up on reserve going to school in Wetaskiwin County.
Okay, what?
It's because there's 4 First Nations in Wetaskiwin County, right? So of course he obviously went to school with a lot of people from there. But to say that in public, that's gross.
Can I say this one thing? Proximity to Indigenous people does not give you the right to speak on Indigenous issues within the Driver region.
What she said.
Exactly. No, nobody speaks to me. Have we learned nothing? Like, we have not learned anything from the situation with Truth and Reconciliation. I mean, we should not. I'm a white person. I should not be speaking for Indigenous people ever. That's not my role.
And here's the thing that bugs me the most is everyone's like, oh, well, you in my library, this one person's like, you're speaking for Indigenous people. No, I'm speaking for one Indigenous person. There's only one Indigenous person on this panel, which is me. And I'm not speaking for everybody because we are not a monolith.
That's right.
This has been brought to my attention by other Indigenous creators. We are not a monolith. You can only speak on your experience. And my experience being solely that, I don't like this deal.
Hi, ZB and Sasquatch. I'm sorry I didn't get to say hi yet. Nice to see you both. I missed you all. And tonight I think we're just going to have
missed you too.
We're just going to talk about everything because it's been 2 weeks since I've seen you guys, and so much has happened. Thank goodness the election was favorable.
Well, can I ask a question though? Because you're the First Nations and Indigenous people. Are you, I guess, satisfied with the way this government came about through this election.
In the federal election?
Yes.
Um, I'm not sure
I
to
know it's a
answer
loaded
that.
question.
What was the question?
Are you satisfied with the outcome? Do you think that things will be better in the relationship with First Nations and Indigenous people and the government of Canada?
I'm
I
hoping.
believe they're better than they would have been under PP.
Yeah.
I was saying PP needs his PP slapped and PP got his PP.
Stop. Mm.
And you know what, I agree. I think it would have been far worse had we had PP. Sorry, I'm just moving my placement here outside.
Right.
But I sometimes I'm concerned about the fast tracking of resource development that was promised by Carney and PP. So on all of them, and I get it. I get it because of the geopolitical situation that we're in.
Right.
But it is a little.
However, Carney has promised, resource development with Indigenous consultation.
Yes.
That's the part I've always. You heard PP say we need to get oil wells going and we need to up production, and then he'd end it
Right.
without saying Indigenous consultation.
I think,
Because he had no plan on doing that.
and for me, my issue is this. I, as a taxpayer, I'm a Canadian taxpayer. I want to know why Canadian taxpayers are paying for the cleanup of abandoned oil wells.
Yep.
And
So
I want to know, why are we paying for that? It is the responsibility of the companies and the organizations that created those wells to take care of them. So
there, though, I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that the Orphan Well Association of Alberta does collect monies from all of the companies. So the companies the producers have to pay into the Orphan Wells Fund. So that if they do go bankrupt, then it's covered, but it's not it doesn't cover it all. And then
Right.
there was, I think it was 20, I forget how much. There was billions anyways committed by Trudeau after COVID to
Yep.
kind of stimulate the economy here in Alberta through cleaning up old abandoned well sites. And that was actually done with Indigenous involvement. So it was a really good program. But I'm with you 100%. These companies should be responsible for the entirety of their project. And part of your project is reclaiming it and cleaning it up and then restoring it. And that just doesn't happen in Alberta.
exactly. And quite honestly,
Alberta, it's also federally, right? It's because we're not tough on our environmental laws when we should be,
exactly.
right? And it's because of in my opinion, it's because who's impacted by that? It's us,
You
right?
You should-
So it's
and that
not
was my
$1
next
onto
question.
us.
you should see logging. So if it's raining and the ground is wet, say like right now after breakup, like so for us, Air 4 was watching our logging crew, right? They will fly around as helicopters and watch, and I'm grateful for it. And they'll go, hey, yeah, we need to keep your skidder and buncher out of that area. You're disturbing. There's like a draw where we have some water there. If there's too much ground disturbance, like they watch you like a hawk in forestry, and we don't get half the subsidization that oil and gas gets, but just the amount of protections in logging, I wish, because that obviously if they can do that with logging without
can
that
do it with oil
subsidization,
and
they could
gas.
absolutely apply that to oil and gas. And I'm saying that as a logger, former logger, and as someone that is getting my heavy duty mechanic and kind of wanted to go to the oil fields. But if we look at the situation right now, if anyone watches Mr. Global on here, right now the Saudi, like they're upping production and tanking oil prices. Not only that, but the biggest partner that we have, because we're going to probably move markets from the States, is China, and they are the leaders of green energy. They are absolutely smashing their green energy goals. They're doing amazing. The demand is only going to decline from here. So to
Well, that's
invest
what they were saying today as well. Right?
billions and billions in new infrastructure, we don't need it. The demand is not going to be there by the time they get that pipeline, even just from Alberta to the West Coast, to Vancouver, let alone to the Atlantic. That demand is already going to be way lower. There's no point. And I'm going into that industry, and I know that,
And did you all see that there was an article a couple of days ago that TMX isn't even at full capacity?
Yep.
And
Gotcha.
partly because they don't have all of the
Gotcha.
they don't have all of the
Um,
clients. They were required to have
There's
the
no
clients.
point.
Can
The
you guys
demand
hear
isn't
me?
there. Yep.
Exactly. But
Yep.
here's
That-
Danielle
Um,
Smith doubling down on oil and gas.
Exactly.
Yeah, she gets all the people riled up.
we got a smart ass comment in the
Oh, I missed
com-
it. You guys are
Penny's
so good at
mom
watching the
says
comments.
Penny's mom says, aren't abandoned wells on First Nation land automatically property of First Nations?
Oh,
Um,
so you pay for it, right? No, that makes sense because your water's been poisoned. That is disgusting. That's disgusting.
And again, here's the reality. I want to know, and again, this is the question that I put to my member of parliament. Thankfully, she lost. I appreciate that she lost, given her stance on not wanting to outlaw.
sorry, 1 second. Penny said she's not being sarcastic, she's being sincere. She said that's not what she meant.
Okay.
She's sincerely asking, like if that's how things work.
Oh,
Well, whether they're on First Nations lands or not, there had to be an agreement, and they should be cleaning it up.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Not
on
First Nations
reserve
people.
lands, it's Indian Oil and Gas Canada who's the regulator, and
Yeah.
they nobody can operate on reserve without what's called a band council resolution. So that means that the company, if there's, and most First Nations in Alberta and Saskatchewan have their mineral rights, so they don't even have to talk to Alberta about drilling on those reserve lands. So if there's minerals underneath a reserve that a company wants to develop, they then go and approach the chief and council to first see if that's what they want to do.
Right.
And if they do, they negotiate a royalty agreement. And IOGC, Indian Oil and Gas, is part of that negotiation. But the chief and council will write what's called the band council resolution, which will give IOGC the direction to review and or approve or put conditions on projects on reserve. But that doesn't mean
I
that they
think
don't get.
Marcy wants to ask a question.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'm in the middle of brushing my hair, so you guys go ahead.
Okay. I'll just finish real quick about IOGC because I used to be an environment and surface analyst at Indian Oil and Gas Canada, and an environment and surface analyst in that regulator does all of the approvals for access roads, well sites, borrow pits, the use of water, the pipelines that tie in the well sites, all of the oil and gas waste management, all of that. Plus they do the monitoring of the operations, and they also assess the site after it's been cleaned up to assign a reclamation certificate to it. And guess what? There's only 3 environment and service analysts for Northeast BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and parts of Ontario. 3 for all the First Nations that have oil and gas on their lands.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
yeah. Keep up. Like when I was in that position, we couldn't keep up. Like there was no way to be able to do it all, right? So most of the time I spend my time just.
I just want to give some context to Penny's mom. So if you rent a concession booth from somebody, and part of the contract is that when you're done with it, you clean it up. That's what we're talking about with these oil wells. You own the concession booth, but you're leasing it from someone, so you're supposed to keep it clean.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
If
what
that makes
bothers
any
me
sense to you.
is that these
I gotta
companies
add,
were allowed to walk away.
Yeah, like
That's
you're
why,
on
is
someone's
because-
land. You're just on their land. You respect it and you clean up as you go out. It's like if you go to a campsite, you take your garbage out with you, because you're
Exactly. You rent a place, you clean it up before you leave.
But it doesn't always
If I
happen.
remember correctly, the fine for not cleaning it up is something stupid like $10,000.
Oh God.
That's
So
what I
why?
heard too.
Yeah, it's something stupidly low. So
It
why
is.
would you spend money on cleaning it up when you just have to pay the fine?
Well,
And it's a one-time fine.
guess what the fine is for illegal dumping on reserve?
What's that?
$5. Oh God.
How much?
$100. So
Are you
can go
kidding
and-
me?
You can go and dump contaminated. Plus the cost to clean up. But you have to that has to be enforced by the RCMP or through the courts because the Department of Indigenous Services nor the First Nation have the authority to enforce it through the Indian Act. Like it's so broken. It's
Okay,
Pointless.
so
I
I've
think
heard
there's
many
one
discussions about the Indian Act.
Tell me.
What? Okay, I want everybody's opinion. I want should it be done away with or not?
No.
I'll start. Yeah. No, and only because not every First Nation is at the place to be without it. Some First Nations do honor that Indian Act, and they want to hang on to it because it does give the statutory and fiduciary obligations that Canada owes to them through that legislation. Some have opted out of, you can opt out of sections of it. So now Canada has written the First Nations Land Management Act, the First Nations Monies Act, the First Nations Oil and Gas Act. So you can opt out of certain portions of the Indian Act to for self-determination, self-governance over land, monies, and resources.
Mhm.
So there's different stages of self-governance and self-determination across the 634 First Nations that exist in Canada. So
Okay.
some want out of it completely, others don't. And it's this is what makes it really hard to negotiate and to resolve issues with First Nations because it's complex.
Well, they
It's
are.
it's very delicate. It's a delicate. If you want out of the Indian Act, the Indian Act has got to be one of the most racist piece of legislation ever created. It was created before the ink was dry on the treaty. So if you want to opt out of the Indian Act, it has to be done with so much delicacy, and you know, it's possible, but the ramifications afterwards could be detrimental to your community. And
So do people like vote on that? So now how does that go through? Like do people in the community get to vote on that then, right?
Yeah.
they hold referendums.
Awesome. Okay.
And you know, not to shit talk our people in any way, but some aren't ready for that, right? And there's still, I've met chief and councils who honestly have not gone past like grade 8, have reading comprehension struggles, and that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent people, but it does create barriers for having these types of conversations to try to move through the legal system sometimes, and also your confidence to sit across the table from politicians and decision makers, right?
Or probably trust even to be involved in that kind of governance, because probably them they're like, fuck you, I don't trust you. And can you blame them?
No.
Well,
I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
I would not want them to trust us. Like I wouldn't.
The other
I
thing
gotta
is,
say,
oh,
sorry.
I was just gonna one little point. The other thing is if you opt out, if you don't do it properly, what winds up happening is the First Nation will wind up having to tax their own members on their own land.
It'd be like a municipality.
Which is, the landlord paying rent on their own building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I find it very interesting because I grew up in Manitoba, right? And what's interesting is that the arguments there have been about self-government and having self-systems. And I find it intriguing because here in British Columbia, I live in Kelowna, and the West Bank First Nations group and the Silix people and the Onyx people are there. And it's interesting because they have entirely their own self-government.
West Bank has an awesome men's fastball team. Wow.
They do. I've seen them play, and they're awesome.
Oh man, those guys could be professionals. They used to have the great Darren Zach pitching for them. They won 6 national titles back to back.
Holy.
Just crazy.
Darren Zach's First Nations from Garden River First Nation, Ontario. Dude was like, he holds 25 world records. Most innings pitched without allowing a run. Most games played with the most strikeouts, with the most strikeouts in a tournament.
That's insane.
I was going to bring up something before I forget. So I had to go to the emergency room like a week and a half ago, and I got a call today for a survey, and it was awesome. So I'm in BC, so I don't know if this is like a BC thing or Northern Health thing or a federal thing or what. They didn't really specify like who was coming from, but it was about overall satisfaction and ways to improve. And, they talk about, was you satisfied with this? Did you get medication and going on? And then there were parts where it was free form and you could put points in where you wanted to. So I said things like, my community used to provide over 40% of taxes for this province, and now our ERR is regularly closed for days at a time. And it got to the end, and you could say anything you want. Does it apply to me? No. But I said, First Nations people are discriminated against in healthcare in this province. People that are homeless, inactive addictions.
That's across the whole province.
If you are, if you are a person of color, and I got to go off and list it, and she was just like, thank you for your feedback. So I don't know if anyone else has that opportunity, or if it happens in another province, I would love to know. I'm assuming it's maybe a BC thing, but man, that was awesome. It was so good to give that feedback today. I was like, yes, good, do something about it. Be accountable.
Exactly. And quite honestly, it's not just a province-wide problem.
No,
The
it's
discrimination
everywhere.
and the anxiety towards First Nations and Indigenous people in Canada. I mean, I grew up in Manitoba. I mean, I'm sorry, but there is still a First Nations community without drinking water because the city of Winnipeg cut off their water. And
Yeah,
Jeez.
100%, which is sad when
we've
they've
done
got
nothing,
WOG
but
there.
nobody's done anything about it. And it
Can
irks me
I?
to no end because it
Go ahead,
needs to
Smart.
stop.
Go ahead,
Hopefully with
Smart.
the Liberals that continues. Hopefully with WOB provincially and then Liberals federally. Hopefully that
Oh,
trend with Trudeau continues. I really hope so.
I'm very hopeful with Wab Kinew being their premier.
Oh yeah.
I think what I like about Wab, and I've met him personally, is he has a common sense thinking cap. He really thinks it's through, and then he what I like about him, he doesn't justify his opinion. He shows you why that's his opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Smarcy, you're
Smarcy,
to
yeah,
me.
she-
Let Smarcy next.
Yep. I saw that she wanted to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. So to answer your question, Danielle, I don't trust any level of our government. To be quite honest, I don't trust
A
any of
little
them.
bit muffled, Smarsh.
Hold on. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't trust any of our government. To be honest, I don't trust Mark Carney. I don't trust Polyev. I don't trust Smith. I don't trust Ford. I don't trust any of them. I really don't have a
And quite
problem.
honestly, I don't blame you. I don't. The reality is, there's been no reason
Can I?
to give them that kind of trust.
All right.
Every time we think, like I had great faith in Trudeau in his first term that he would try, he would
Okay.
make an effort, but
But
quickly policies changed.
uh,
Smarsh,
it's not policies change, Danielle. It's really not. It's just people up in higher up management, higher up positions that get to change the rules for whatever reason they like. They haven't done a goddamn thing for us. I don't know,
so
160 years.
And I know what you're saying, Smarsh, but I've been a public servant both at the federal and provincial levels. And I've seen what happens when folks get elected. So not only do they have a lobby that they have
Right.
to answer to, they also have deputy ministers and associate deputy ministers that have been there longer than they are, who are
Yeah.
also controlling a narrative because they're trying to fulfill promises from the past or, carry out some work in policy. And here's
Right.
something I've seen that politicians do is they make commitments like addressing all the boil water advisories on reserve, which I was very happy to hear that commitment came out. But I knew that he was overcommitting when he said it because he didn't fully understand the challenges around addressing the
Right.
situation on reserve. So politicians overcommit all the time without
Right.
realizing the policy barriers, the financial barriers, the lobbyists, all of those things that once
Yeah.
they get into office
But
are
see, here's the reason I voted for Carney, because Carney is the lesser of two evils. It's two birds of a feather flock together. I understand that every politician is going to have their good moments and their bad moments. And Trudeau wasn't a saint. He was far from a saint, but he was a decent human being, and he tried.
He
He
did.
honestly tried. I love him too. Like I hated him at first, and then I understood. I read his policies more,
Same
and it
here.
was like it was it was difficult. But the reason I gave Carney is because Carney is the only one that actually ran on the fact that we need to consult the Indigenous people. Jagmeet did a little
Over and
bit.
over again, you heard it from him.
It's
Polyev,
it's interesting you say that because I think for me, my foray, I don't know if you remember Chris Alexander. He used to be the Minister of Immigration. He was part of the Harper government. And of course, if you think back about, and I don't want to say it, but do you remember that picture that became a worldwide picture of the Turkish soldier
Yeah.
holding that little one? Okay, I don't think people realize, and I met Chris Alexander after he came out of politics and after that. And when he asked me why I had written him a letter saying that I felt that he did have a role in what happened to that young man, to that little boy. And he said to me, I don't think you knew that. I said, but you were the Minister of Immigration. And when he asked me to qualify my letter, I said to him, you had the power. His aunt wrote you 6 months before that event happened, and you ignored her letter. And she was your constituent as well. She was writing to you, the Minister of Immigration, given she feared that would happen to her family. And you didn't do anything when you were given the power to do that. You're the minister. I don't think you took that responsibility seriously. And what's happened? That 3-year-old won't be 4 ever.
Right. And the thing is, you got to take it from like, I walk in two different worlds, okay?
Yes.
I always have, I always will. But people have to understand that everybody in this country matters. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. You deserve everything that everyone else does. I
Mm-hmm.
have been sitting here racking my brain. Why do I fight for what I fight for? Been racking my brain, and I do it because I have, not because I have to, but because I want to. And it's not a want that I want recognition for. It's a want to do it because of. It's almost like I'm fighting for those who fought for us before colonization to
Mm-hmm.
get us where we are here today. We keep continuing the fight. We keep educating. We keep doing what we got to do. But the only one that made sense was Carney, and I've got to give him two. I'm gonna give him 2 years. If he hasn't done anything, then he showed me his true colors. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters right now is getting it out and realizing that we are who we are. We need to be consulted, and that's all that matters.
Well,
If
and
you
quite
cannot sit at
honestly,
this,
it should be a given now, right?
right, but if you cannot sit
Canadian
at
people, we know us white Canadian people know it should be a given. It shouldn't be an argument.
Right.
If we are supposed, but what and I take it this way as a taxpayer, what irks me to no end is when we waste money, right? I do not think that we should be spending all this kind of money. Justice Sinclair made it very clear to Canadians. He told us, read just one story.
Yep.
And then if you still haven't had a change of heart, then you're not there to make reconciliation. He was clear about that, right? But it comes down to, yes, I understand that we have to learn a lot of terrible history. We're only touching an iceberg, and you know as well as I do, there's far more to the iceberg than just what you see.
yeah,
But the reality of the situation is this. I'm in my 50s now, and quite honestly, I'm tired of people pitting our vulnerable against our vulnerable. So I'm sorry, but why is it that the veteran is more important than the senior? And why is the senior more important than the refugee? And why is the refugee more important than the Indigenous person? And why is the Indigenous person than the shelterless? Like, they're all important because I think we have to remember that we're all part of one race, and that's the human race.
Well, and the thing is that people that are vulnerable are put into situations where they might have a lot of trauma, distrust, and they are vulnerable not just in their situation of all their barriers, but they're also vulnerable like how we see a lot of these young people that are kind of, financially it's a bit bleak. They are vulnerable for conservatives to pick on. So when you are in a vulnerable state, you're vulnerable to being manipulated as well. Right? I mean, luckily, most people are pretty educated and they stand their ground, and that's great. And people are learning that, if you're disabled, you're a senior, you're a person of color, you're First Nations, you're a woman, you're whatever, you're an immigrant, that really you're fighting the same plight. And the whole thing is, like you say, we're all just human. We're all trying to get by and do all right. And if you work better as a team, you're all less vulnerable. And that's the scary thing that the ruling class and the white majority does not want. They do not want us because there's a lot more of us that are not white and perfect and rich and Christian and this and that. There's a lot more diversity and there's more of us than them. So they know that. They're scared.
Trista, I just want to answer Trista in the comments. She was asking what I'm showing here. So this is the Katuskanau Declaration for the Beaver Lake. This is when they started their court battle against Canada and Alberta. This is the red outline is the traditional territory of Beaver Lake. And it's signed May 14th, 2008. But on the left, it reads, my Cree is not anywhere near that good, but on the right is a translation. It says, let it be known that we, the Beaver Lake Cree Nation, are the keepers of the lands shown in the map attached, which form part of our traditional territory. This land is our spiritual, physical, and economic heartland. We keep this land in honor of our ancestors and on behalf of our future generations. So that as long as the sun, as long as the sun shines, the river flow, and the grass grows. That, by the way, that is the end date for the some of the treaties that were signed. I don't think it's on all of them, but I think it's on a majority of them.
Yeah.
This is the land where our future generations will practice our sacred and spiritual ways and exercise our traditional rights to hunt, fish, trap, and gather for food and sport, which have been partly recognized by treaty and constitutional documents. It is our right to gain our livelihoods from these lands. And that's an important line right there, because there are reserves north of Lac La Biche that still fully live off the land. They have trap lines, they have lakes they fish out of, they hunt for sustenance, they take the furs and they go and sell them.
Yeah.
So that line is very important right there.
Absolutely.
Because it shows that the word livelihoods is
our economy. We have an indigenous economy that has been impacted by this economy that's imposed on us. But and thanks for bringing that up and for the question, the comment, because this makes me think about. I've had a lot of debate in the last few days with these separatist type folks that want to leave Canada, and they keep saying to me, "Well, you can renegotiate a better treaty with Alberta." Well, I'm sorry, but like what you said, these treaties are as long as the grass grows, the rivers flow, and the sun shines. And these treaties were negotiated by our ancestors, and I cannot seem to get through with some of these people.
Can
I
I?
keep trying to tell them we honor our ancestors. Was that ZB? Go ahead.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, Smarshy. Was that? I'm sorry, I didn't see who was.
I'll ask after. I'll address it after.
Okay.
DB can go first.
No, I actually. So one of my goals to do. I'm taking the conversation back to our elected officials on reserves, and that is the fact that we actually get together and we talk about what's working and helping each nation prosper. We go forward together because that is the only way forward.
Exactly.
Right? Like, to think about it in the fact that if we had actually banded together rather than separating when the Munioff first came here, it would be vastly different than what it is now. And I gotta say, the struggle under capitalism is not the same, even though it is rich versus poor. There's still a lot of intersectionality there that needs to be addressed before we can have complete together allyship.
Yes, we still have to solve many problems before we can consider that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've worked in nonprofit. I work for Habitat for Humanity. I've done this now 26 years. I've worked all around the world. I've worked on chronic illness organizations. There's so many things. And I've worked in a social network that, I'm proud to be a part of, but at the same time, I've learned a great deal about when we put band-aids on solutions and call them solutions.
Right. I just want to address the comment that J Dubs made. We do. Now, if I can be corrected, the the two ladies that are on this panel that are Indigenous can correct me. I do believe we have um treatment for Indigenous people. I believe they're called longhouses.
We do.
If I'm not
Well,
corrected.
for instance, Beaver Lake Cree Nation had a rehab center on their land, on the reserve, I think it opened in 1983. So, and there's Kapown, there is Charles Daniel Center. What's the one in Fort Mac? I forget. It's called.
I don't remember that one. Sorry.
Yeah, and then there's one down south in Cardston on Cardston Reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
I think the issue that I see with the way First Nations funding happens is, and I put the question to my member of parliament when I wanted to, because I wanted to understand why First Nations children get less money education wise. And she goes, I don't know what you mean by that. I said, I want to know. I said, if you're going to give $240 to this child in an urban setting, but only half of that to a First Nations child on a reserve, why? The investment should be the
Population.
same. Yeah, but it shouldn't be about that.
Population.
It should
Yeah,
be
but
about the investment in
that's what they go
education.
down to, right? It's so the funding for students. Okay, so I have an autistic child, so you get an additional $2,000, or at least in BC, and it might have gone up since she was younger, but you get $2,000 per student that is disabled, which you have to apply for the year before they start at that school, right? And that's if they actually meet the criteria to get extra funding. So, like an IEP with a
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis where they're going to be disruptive.
Right.
Right.
And this, I agree with you, but that's how they narrow it down. It's based off of the population of the area and based off of how the schools are applying for things. And obviously, who's in provincial government.
For me, I think I'm sorry, but a child on a reserve and a child in a city are no different.
Yeah.
Their education should be equal, which means the
Yeah, but
investment
to
in their
you,
education should be equal, especially if that child doesn't have a special need or anything as such.
but Danielle, to you, we also see that as not being the case. But that is the case that the government doesn't look at. They look at it
Exactly.
like they look at it differently, right? That's
And
the thing you're
that was
also
why I put the question to my member of parliament going, why is that child different? The only
You see,
difference between them
the
is,
needs of the needs of an Indigenous child are a little different. If you want to look at their culture,
yes,
their language, Indigenous schools on reserves, and they do have them, teach these things to their students. They teach them their language, their culture. That is not taught in like public schools that are in rural towns and
Mhm.
cities.
So maybe the funding
Um,
should be more.
they
that would be my
the
question. Like,
And
yeah
to
you
me, I
want
think
to,
the
at least the funding should at least be equal. Do you know what I mean? And quite
yeah.
honestly, if that child needs more money because they're learning more language, more culture, right? Then why aren't we looking at that? Like, to me, you give a child the best start by giving them the investment they need in their education.
it's just like because the Indian Act at one time you weren't able to get past grade 9, and if you wanted to go beyond grade 9, you had to disenfranchise and give up your Indian status. And I believe that was, and it's commonly believed that that's because Canada didn't want to have smart Indians around. And
right.
it's probably the same thing now. And you know what, Real Native, I wanted to bring up something though. What they don't learn in our schools on reserve is the Indian Act. I had
Yeah.
high school students that were my summer students that were working with me when I worked in Muscatine. And one day I was spent an afternoon with them, and I asked them, I said, do you know who owns the reserve, the land? And they all just were like blank. And one kid finally said, I don't know, is it the chief? And I'm like, no, it's Canada. Canada owns reserve land. It's all federal crown land, and it's administered through the Indian Act. And these poor young people are not taught this in school. And so they've already put at a disadvantage to have a good conversation, or if you want to run for chief, or counselor, or work even in your band office. You have a steep learning curve by the time you graduate high school and want to try to work within your own community.
I just want to say to Nami in the comments, I just want to laugh. But she's serious, so I'm going to laugh harder.
I don't know why I can't see the comments. Like, I don't see them.
I wanted to say, like, that's the real difference. And I know that a lot of people do get salty of that in our community, is the fact that it is a privilege to grow up in this city because of the systemic issues that you have and benefits, because you are already culturalized and understand things in the white world more than res kids do who have only grown up on the res. And people take for granted that small thing of growing up in the city. Like, I'm not privileged. I've been a foster kid, but like, I acknowledge the fact that my childhood was better because I was in the city all the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I didn't have a shitty childhood. I am still a youth in care, but
let's get rid of Nami. She's from Venezuela, trying to talk about our people here wanting to separate. See you later. You got
Seriously,
you
Oh,
got
oh,
really.
zero
Gideon,
voice here.
Gideon. Just so you know, I'm indigenous as well. I'm from the Métis Red River Settlement. I understand First Nations have treaties. We do not, but we still support them because we're all indigenous at the same point.
Well, and now under Section 9124 of the Constitution Act of Canada, Métis are identified as Indians for the
Yep.
purposes of Section 9124. Thanks to my uncle, who's that was the
Yes.
decision of 2016. For some, I can't see any comments. Like it looks like it's just an empty room to me. It's just I don't know why. What I
Well,
set
I
up
think it might be
wrong.
better since that person's being quite ignorant. Like,
Oh God! Like, and
yeah.
they're saying they're from Venezuela.
So one
Oh,
thing,
there they are.
one thing I wanted to bring up was the King is coming to Canada, King Charles. I think
yes, he
that's
is.
an opportunity for the First Nations to remind him of the treaties and
Mhm.
those about when he comes here.
Right.
How do we block Nami?
I don't know. I can't even see anything.
Hey, what you do is you hit her face, and it'll pop up, and then the three dots will go block or mute.
But that only blocks her for me, right?
No, it blocks her from the live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's just invite
See ya.
get some new folks joining up. So, hi, Crazy I Am. Nice to see you. And Addicted Bear. Crazy, if you wanted to add, we're talking about just kind of everything because I haven't been able to have a live for a couple weeks, and we've had an election. We have Bill 54. Go ahead. Sorry, Real Native.
1 second. I just realized what we did not do that we should have done before we started. We should have a moment of silence for MMIW.
Oh,
is
yeah, it's today,
Of
isn't it?
course.
Yes, today,
Yes.
Red Death Day.
Thank you for reminding us. Let's have our moment of silence.
I just realized that myself. Oh.
Thank you.
Oh.
Normally I put red dresses on my driveway, but this year, as you've seen by my videos, I'm having a little conflict with my neighbors, so I didn't put
What's
any.
going on with your neighbor?
Oh, I have young folks on dirt bikes that like to bother me, but it's what it is. And it's fine for the most part. It's when it's incessant.
Yeah.
And one time, because I did stop these kids once because they were back and forth, and I'm on the road a lot, and so when I get home, I'd like to enjoy my gardens, and so I did go down to the road and stop them one time. I'm like, listen, you move out here to listen to your bikes, and there's a dirt bike trail in Rimby, which is right close to where I live, and they went home to their mom, and their mom, who I know she's a little unstable, but she sent them up the fence line, and the fence line is like 10 meters from my deck, not even. And those kids sat there and revved their bikes until I cried.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just, you know what, so my parents taught us to respect our elders,
Right?
say please and thank you and you're welcome, open a door for people, especially seniors, right? And help anybody, right? That was just the way our parents raised us. So quite honestly, the fact is that if they're being disrespectful to you as a young person, that's just, I'm sorry, but somebody needs to give them a good slap. Okay.
Well, they actually came by a second time. Well, they've done this, but one time specifically, they came by. There was 4 or 5 of them on quads and dirt bikes. They gave us the fingers. They were going by and yelled "F you" at us. So my husband chased them
Oh God.
home, and actually, I had to bring light to the man of the house over there because the woman is a little, like I said, she's a little bit unstable. And I knew the minute I stopped them on the road, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to pay for this. I've actually had to have the RCMP to come out. The RCMP told me, and I did a video about this actually, and the RCMP basically said to me, yes, you're right. It's not even legal for them to be on the public road. I do have a legal right to peaceful enjoyment of property.
Yeah.
who said he was worried about them retaliating against me because it is rural Alberta. I am an Indigenous woman, and that RCMP can't be here to protect me from that.
But in this day and age, think about that. Because
But Danielle,
because
the
you're
thing
an
is,
Indigenous woman.
the thing is,
It's real.
I'm gonna say this is gonna come off harsh, and I don't mean
No,
it to,
say
but
it. But if you don't say it harshly, people don't get the lesson. You have to tell us.
you can see a problem with it, and you can go talk to the parents, whereas Treaty Bird cannot because they look at her less than a person. That's what it is. It's intimidation so that she will move because she doesn't feel safe in her own home. That's what it is. It's white people doing white people shit, and I'm tired of it.
I'm
It's true.
I'm sorry. Did we hear from Crazy Jam and
Yeah, we didn't hear from Crazy I Am yet or Addicted Bear. So, and I noticed Jana was up and left. So I'm really sorry, Jana, if you're still here. But go Crazy I Am, please. Just say
Hi,
whatever.
everybody. How is everybody doing tonight?
Good, how are you, love?
Good. By the way, Treaty, I'll come and kick their ass for you.
Two. I'll fly down. I don't give a shit.
you know what?
Yeah, you just tell me
should
where I
come and
need to come.
organize a powwow
Okay.
right by their
I
fence line.
hope this is a nice live because a couple of them I've been in have been pretty harsh on me.
I hear that. I was in a couple today too for a minute. And
I was like, oh, help me.
with that Sir John A. or that John A. McDonald guy. I was just in
Oh,
one.
that guy's a racist piece of garbage.
He's
I can't stand
Like,
him.
there's been a couple of them where I just want to come through the phone and just shake them. Shake them. Would you listen and
racist
stop?
garbage. I don't know that I've got a chance to tell all of you. When I was in Toronto last week, I got to listen to Stephen Harper talk for 26 minutes.
Oh God, that must have
Felt
been
for you, girl.
Oh,
Did your ears
That
bleed?
feels-
Swear to God, like
I felt dirty. I was just
oh
like,
my
Uh,
and
did you have to wash conservative off of you, or
Yeah.
You know,
Do you know what the worst part of it was? Is he's talking to a room of probably, I'd say 500-600 First Nation delegates in this conference, and he's talking about developing the North. There were no Inuit in that room, none. And I wrote to the organizers actually today, and I said this is highly inappropriate. If the Métis were gathering to talk about developing resources on reserve, the First Nations sure would be pissed off about that. And here we are having a conversation with Stephen Harper about developing the Arctic and the North with no Inuit in the room.
like. But welcome to the problem. Why do you think he kept losing? Right? Because he failed. He kept failing to consult, and then of course everybody lost their collective poop when Trudeau bought a pipeline and started the consultation. Everybody got all mad.
Yeah.
And please don't get me wrong. I mean, I lived in Northern Ontario when they were trying to get East Energy through. And, you know, I was at an event in Beardmore, Ontario, of all places. And do you know what that community kept telling Trans Mountain at that time? We want to know why you just wouldn't put in new pipeline.
It's Trans Canada, was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
But do you know what I mean?
Because I used to work at Trans Canada, and I was there when Energy East was being proposed.
And it was interesting to hear them. They had real honest questions of just saying, so why don't you just build the pipeline meant for that type of oil instead of trying to convert something that's 80 years of age and maybe it's not safe for our community? And partly because, you know, they saw what happened in Lac-Mégantic, right? They had concerns. It's a small community.
Yeah.
But nope. The position they kept having was, no, we're being denied. And that wasn't the truth.
And here's the thing. Going back to the pipeline and what Danielle Smith was talking about, it was a whole bunch of nothing.
Exactly.
She was talking and talking, and she literally looked like she was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And she looked almost like she was going to cry doing the interview because she's like, oh, I stand by the indigenous people. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't give a good goddamn. That's a lie. And, you know, it just...
she was serious. Let me
Oh,
laugh harder.
she was serious. No, she was literally
No,
serious.
she tried to be serious. It was, but you see, the people of Alberta, I'm sorry, but they would vote for a bologna sandwich if it has a conservative logo on it.
Yeah, they all think they're conservative. They're brainwashed. There's a lady I follow on TikTok here who she's done a video because she did that test to show you where you land in the political spectrum. And so she's like, I did the test and it turns out I'm more like an NDP. And she said all her life she believes she was conservative because that's just what her family is and what Albertans are.
Yep.
And so she worked really hard in trying to get people, encourage people to do that test. I don't know how successful she was, but it what an eye opener.
It
Did
was
you
just
see
like one.
someone in the chat just said that they got a call from the Republican Party of Alberta
I got one yesterday.
asking about a separatism support.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I'm here in BC and I'm getting calls to ask about my satisfaction with discrimination in healthcare.
It's just
Just to show you the difference between leadership, they're
Yep.
asking about discrimination against Native people in healthcare in my province. Just
And
And you
separation.
know,
It was
it's
specific to if you wanted to separate. And of course, you got to leave a message. You could leave a comment at the end after everything. Of course, I said, no, it's not our place to separate. We don't have the land. It doesn't belong to us white folk. It never has. That's like,
but here's the
this
thing.
was
I am
like,
so tired of hearing, oh, we need to separate. We need to separate. What? And I'm also so tired of hearing, oh, it'd be better for the Indigenous people. When has it
Oh
ever
God,
been? When is
I
it
am
ever?
so tired of that
When
one.
is it
Um,
ever been good for the Indigenous people in Canada with you guys that makes you think it's going to be better for us when
okay.
we're with
I want to
you?
add in onto
go ahead,
Smarshy's rant
Judy.
when she's done.
That's just it. ZB, go ahead. It's just so infuriating that they think that we're going to be better off as separatists.
Yeah.
No, we're no better. We're better if everyone just left us the fuck alone and gave us rights to our land back.
Yes.
I'm tired of this.
Okay.
And after ZB,
I will
you hear
say
from Addicted Bear too. But go
I
ahead,
will
ZB.
say it is in the Liberal platform to give us land back,
Yep.
more land back to our
Yep.
reserves, but it's
Yep.
still there. It's still a
Yeah,
promise. Anyway, this is the thing that like annoys me so much about the separatist discussion is the fact they actually don't realize how fucking fucked America is right now. America has fallen. There is no democracy there.
well,
There
I was
is no
laughing.
democracy. Due process is gone. The justice system is gone. Social security is gone. You one
Medicare is
thing I
gone.
think
gotta
that's what
say.
Albertans want. They like this whole idea of a libertarian society where you just take care of yourself.
Well,
got
Well,
and
but
also
here's
Also,
the
the
thing.
social
It
services is for profit, and the same with the prison system down in the States. It is for profit. Those two things being privatized here in Canada would be so catastrophic to Indigenous people. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
think the numbers are bad now? Wait until they privatize that shit and they get money for adopting our children.
yeah.
Like,
Right.
that would be mass trafficking. And
And it's
Wow.
ZB. I feel the same fucking way you do. Trust me on that one. It is
what happened to
astronomically
Addicted Bear?
insane.
I don't know.
I don't know. Roll dropped. I guess it just. It's like, okay, you guys want to go to a country that doesn't want us. They're trying to separate, or they're trying to tell our country not to go to their country. They're right above us. The only other place, they've taken planes from Canada out of the U.S. Like, they don't land in the U.S. anymore. They go a direct connect. I am sorry. When in the fuck has this ever been a good idea for Native people? I am done
You know
with the
what's
separatist
funny
talk.
though
Do any
is
of you
they
know
want
this
to go
kind
to
of
the
comment?
states.
Do any of you know this?
and good luck flying to the states. Good luck flying to the states right now because they just get put out a notice for Newark Airport. It is so dangerous. Their air traffic control has no communication with planes. Good luck flying to the states because they can barely even function with their airports. So good luck with that. And it's funny how they really don't like immigrants in our country, but it's okay if white people go to the states, almost like it's skin color and not immigration. Huh?
Right?
Isn't that funny?
Absolutely,
Isn't that
Sasquatch.
funny? Isn't that hilarious? And I've been commenting that because I work blue collar. And so my algorithm gets pretty. I think I blocked about 200 people yesterday in their big trucks. And they got in their bio, oh, I got 5 trucks, but I can't afford a house and they're 22. And Caden still lives at home and you have 5 trucks. Well, maybe you shouldn't have 5 trucks. But they're all of them. Oh, I'm ready to go. Who's moving to America? And I'm like, good luck with that. Guess you don't hate immigration anymore. And good luck with that because the $200 in your checking account is about 130 in the States. You might have to sell some of your trucks and dirt bikes and move out of mom and dad's. You
It's
can't
a,
even handle rent. But good luck. You don't have enough assets to move to the States. You probably are not skilled enough in your trade at 22 to be a skilled tradesman to go down to the States. So good luck with all that, Kaden. Have
it's
fun on
not
your
even
23rd
that, right? It
birthday.
is also the wage difference between us and them.
Yes.
And they like they're
In the
making
trades,
like
it's better.
7.25 for minimum
No,
wage, and then their
sorry.
rent is $3,000.
Sure. Sorry. In the trades, they make way more money. That trust me, I debated moving down as a logger. When I was dating someone in Northern California. I got offered a job in a machine I've never run. I have not run process, well, a little bit, but I'm not a rock star in it. And I got offered 42 American an hour to start. Boom. If you
Yikes.
can get down here, you can immigrate and you get your visa. Come on down, girl. We'd love to have you. Can you wrench a bit? Yep. Can you run other equipment? Yep. Get on down here. 42 American an hour. Do you know what I got paid for my dad? $10 an hour running Skater in
Wow.
2018. Well, his business is gone. It sank the next year. I did it just to help him out, but it was flat day rate, 200 a day. I left my house at 9:30 at night and got home at 4:30 the next day, 5:30 next day, 20-hour day, 200 flat rate. But I mean, it's whatever, right? Like when your family needs help, I did it to help my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother was a foreman for, he's making like 325, 350 a day, and he's pulling the same hours as me and beating the crap out of his truck and his, bringing his own tools and his own welder to do it. So I mean, you do what you can for family. That's
Exactly.
But if I jumped on a logging crew here, my neighbor is a processorman. He has been doing it for about 36 years, well, my whole life, longer than my life. He gets 34 an hour, and he can rent. Electronics. He's an old guy, but I mean, he wrench wise, mechanically, he can fix it all. He fixes their service trucks. He's got his own service bed and all his tools. He makes 30. I think it's 34. He said he makes an hour right now. And he's been doing it longer than I've been alive. The pay in the trades. I know guys that make 100 American an hour union jobs at like working for the county, like running excavator and doing stuff like that. They get mucho money in the trades down there. Trust and believe the unions kick our ass. Operators, unless you're in a mill or something like that, you ain't got no union. You're getting 28. I was making 2160 training loader operators 2 years ago.
That's awesome.
2160 retroactive LOA, and they wanted me. Cascades wanted me to go from Alaska down to down to Washington and all the way to Alberta, and all my LOA was retroactive. I made an Excel spreadsheet and explained to them, once I'm done snow removal, I physically cannot afford to rent a car for $4,000. Get a hotel, that's another $6,000. I don't make 10 grand a month. And then I asked them, I go, how long does it typically take for LOA to pay me out? They said it could take 2-3 months. So I'm going to run at a net negative. So what, am I putting this on my credit card? And I left. I said, fuck you. Sorry. I'll go to the mines up north. I'll go anywhere else because sorry, 21 an hour. I made more running forklift at course stock, bringing parts to Canfor. So sorry. No.
You want to hear from the new guy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, let's hear what Ryan JC has to say. Welcome to Beaver Politics or the Beaver Network and Indigenous Matters, Ryan.
Hello, how's it
Can
going?
we get your age?
Hello?
Hi, can we just get your age, please, for TikTok?
Yeah, I'm 24 actually. It says 23, but I'm 24, turning 25 tomorrow.
Oh, well,
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I just gotta turn my TV down, get the hockey game on. Just watching the Leafs and the Panthers. Hey.
All
Leafs
right,
are
so
winning.
what do you
Leafs are
got to
winning.
say about
Well,
everything
I'm
that's
I'm status as well. My reserve
Nice.
is Ebb and Flow, First Nation in Manitoba.
We're in
Oh,
Manitoba.
Okay.
You lucky bugger.
Welcome
You guys
to.
got Wob Canoe out there.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, great premier of ours.
He's an awesome man.
Yeah. Definitely got that damn conservative government with that Stephenson who didn't want to search the landfills, and guess what? When they searched them, they found the bodies, right?
Oh,
Yep.
Yep.
that was disgusting.
That maybe.
That was disgusting. I grew up in Winnipeg, and it brought me back to a time when there was another situation where it was a famous football player who was being accused of unaliving his wife, where they went and looked for her for weeks at a landfill.
Crazy.
Right? It was disgusting.
And same thing, there was a YT man in Ontario that was killed and dumped in a landfill, and they searched for him too.
Yep.
For 6
Really?
months. Yeah, it took him 6 months. It
That
took us
this
4
became
years.
a political talking point is absolutely abhorrent. How
Very.
It's
those that
egregious.
conservative government turn that into a political, like, oh, it was gross.
I
It's
know.
disgusting.
It,
But
Well,
it
Those
I mean,
people
at
in
least our
southern
new
Manitoba,
government did so. Yeah.
and like I
well,
noticed
and
that
that's the
southern
problem.
Manitoba is a lot of conservative after that election, right? That was where the blue is.
Oh, but
They
it's
should be
always been that way.
embarrassed. They should be
It was.
embarrassed for voting for
I
that.
they
know.
should be.
Federally, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, it's Manitoba has two very large populations, NDP and conservative. They don't,
Yeah.
for the exception of Sharon Carsters in the 90s, who had a really odd situation where she was a pretty popular liberal. And she did have official status in the 90s, but at a different time,
Hmm.
right?
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
For my time, but
we need somebody from Saskatchewan. It's pretty awful over there. Oh my gosh.
Oh God, yeah.
My my cousin is from Saskatchewan, but she's on my mom's side, and she was saying some outlandish shit. I'm like, do you realize if I was in front of you and you weren't related to me, I would probably smack you in the face. She's like, I've got some land you can buy off me. I'm like, they shouldn't have to buy my land back.
What?
But
Yeah.
But that's the ignorance of an entire generation. Like I have an aunt, lives in Alberta, born and raised there, and she had a thing about going to the bathroom with trans people, and I'm trying to explain to her, you've been going to the bathroom with trans people for decades, you just didn't know it,
Right?
right? Trying to explain that to her, and she's just like, I'm sorry, but, and I'm like, no, you don't get to be sorry for being a racist, for being
Absolutely.
somebody who's a bigot,
That
right?
reminds me that I saw a video of is it a trans woman? Like this, it was a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm always, so correct me if I don't say it properly, but who's transitioned to a woman.
So
And the
so
whole,
they consider themselves trans, and they live themselves so their pronoun is probably her or yeah, okay.
and she was gorgeous, right? And had a beautiful figure and stuff. And
Mhm.
she's like, she was making fun, like, oh, you want me in the bathroom with your husbands, do you? Right? Can't wait for that kind of thing. And I was like, this is classic. That was a great way to kind of show people, right? Because they always think about the man side of it, not
They do.
yeah.
Well,
And
and
where
that's
the problem lies is that, I'm an open member of the LGBT community, but I have never worried about having harm brought to me because of who I am. I have worried greatly for our trans members of our community, given the heat and I'm sorry, but the hate that has been stirred up by the politicians in this country and in the US and around the world.
Yeah.
There is no reason for it. There is, I mean, I grew up in Winnipeg. It was the first city in all of North America to ever openly elect an openly gay mayor,
right.
right?
yeah, Glenn Greer, right?
Exactly. So for me to see these politicians, Pierre Poilievre, a great example of it, right? There are only two genders. Who the hell are you to decide that? Like, show me the science degree you have.
Right.
Look at Samantha in the comments there. Great point. She says what they're truly afraid of is the actions of cis men, not trans folks, but they won't admit it. And if you look
Exactly.
at
Absolutely.
it is about trans women so to them, what they think is that this person's got the biological urges of all the cis men around them, which is not correct. That's a trans woman. That is a woman, or they're non-binary. And what they're scared of is how they would behave if they or their friends or those guys that hang out at work or those guys that they heard at the bar last week, how they would behave in a bathroom. And that's the reality.
I had something happen to me elsewhere just a little bit. I got accosted by a cis man thinking that I was a trans man or a trans
Wow.
woman. And he was like, you're not going in that bathroom. I'm like, okay, you got one or two options. You let me go use the toilet or I pee on your leg. And
Are you
we're in a
kidding?
bar. So.
Why?
No, I'm
How
serious.
the heck? I'm sorry. How the heck do they get you confused? I'm sorry.
No,
Because,
you want to know what? That's where the issue lies. Okay, it's
but
these politicians have created such a
this
fear
was
for something
way
they don't
before. This was
understand.
way before. This was way before all the politicians went out with it. And I told him, you have two options. Let me go use the bathroom because I really have to pee, or I'm going to use your leg as a urinal. I do not fucking care. Like, you
Wow.
have to let me pee. If it wasn't for the LGBT, 2S LGBTQIA+,
Yep.
probably won't get this man away from me. I don't know if I would have gotten in the bathroom because he was starting to go cop a feel, and I'm like, you are not touching me down there. That is not happening. Oh
Well,
yeah,
and
You should
let's
have
not
pissed on him.
not forget now that what they're trying to legislate in the states for their, idea to regulate is they want to look at children's genitals. How much abuse? And I'm gonna keep
Great.
myself calm and not get upset, so I'm not sobbing and screaming and swearing.
Mhm.
How much abuse is that going to allow for those kids, whether they are trans, whether they are straight, cis, and I don't care. They want to look at little kids' bodies. How many of those little kids down there are going to get abused?
Well, not just that,
Abused
but
like crazy, and it's going to be legally defended. They're not going to have any way to defend themselves.
Yeah,
exactly.
but
And
okay, you
and
have to you
we have
have
to
to
be calm.
remember. Sorry. Go ahead,
We have
Jen.
to.
There's no way they're going to have no legal repercussions for doing that to children. They're
Mhm.
wide open legally to do it. That's terrifying as they're dismantling all the different branches of their government. Legislative's under attack as well. So how are
Exactly.
they supposed to defend it, let alone on a
here's
municipal or a small scale level, on a
so,
federal level? It's
TV
going to be
first.
protected.
yeah, Zibby, go ahead. Zibby, go ahead. I can never get your
It's
name right. I'm sorry, my
also
girl.
the fact, like, you have to remember, going into this is that trauma feeds the wheels of capitalism. Trauma feeds the wheels of capitalism. You cannot rest and take care of yourself and plan revolutions and build community when you are thoroughly traumatized. And when
Mhm.
you look at Project, we know what year this is. When you look and read that document, that's what they're doing. They're pushing us back to the 1800s to traumatize them, to get them to fall back under the wheels of capitalism, because
Yes.
we are on, like, I don't know if y'all are paying
Not
I,
just
I
attention,
don't I
but
don't
it
want to
is
say
that
I
oppression.
don't
is
want to say that
across.
people are traumatized can't fight, because I think that's a bit of a black and white statement, because there are very, very oppressed and traumatized people, and they are fighting right
There
now.
Yes.
are,
They
but
are
it's
My,
fighting.
pushing you to exhaustion. That's the point.
Yeah,
It's
and if I
pushing
could,
you to exhaustion.
and ZB, you bring up a really good point. And there was a lady on the microphone at the protest on Saturday who said that same thing to that group. All you're doing is allowing Danielle Smith to create trauma for you and for us. And this is now we're
exactly.
creating new trauma here between the causing race relations, right? And
Yeah.
and I
So,
felt traumatized being there. It was I could only stay for a little while. I couldn't stay for long because that's a lot of hate to have feeling directed at you, and then also the hate that I started feeling back towards them. And I don't want to be a hateful person. So
Yeah,
that's a
you
Well,
really
and
know,
the
good point,
pressure
Stephen.
then when
Thank
you're
you.
put on the hot seat, whether you are, especially I'm sure as a First Nations woman or a woman of color, there's that stereotype of how, oh, if
yeah.
you talk back. So I mean, as a woman in general, but being a woman of a different race, imagine how you're treated when you speak up, and then you somehow are, oh, you're all emotional, or oh, you can't, you're acting crazy,
Okay.
and it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Um.
Go ahead, Smart.
It's
So
sad.
there was a bill that they were trying to pass in Congress, and I read the bill, and it basically stated that anyone going into girls' sports would have to be inspected before they are able to play. They needed 60 votes for it. They only got 52 or 55 votes. They were 5 votes shy. I'm allowing
People
coaches.
are pedophiles. Those people
I
are
understand.
pedophiles.
GB, I get it. GB, I understand that. But what I'm saying is they didn't pass it because nobody wanted to have that happen. But the thing is that it was actually a thing that they were trying to make happen. Makes me sick to my stomach as a mom. You
And
touch my child, you're done. Like that's it. I'm going to jail and I'm smiling in my mugshot all the way to the court. I will smile when the court gives me my sentence. I don't give a good goddamn. Any child,
we'll make shirts with
I'm
your
going to
mugshot
jail.
like Trump did.
Free Smarchy.
Oh my God, that is just unbelievable. Like, what next? What next? Like, in this whole conversation about boys shouldn't be in girls' sports because of the trans conversation. Like, we have weight, like, like it's based on categories, right?
Yep.
In sports, like if you're playing sports against you, usually it's the same age group and kind of,
Take a look. You remember when that boxer, that female boxer at the Olympics, when they were
Oh
accusing
yeah,
her? Do you remember that? And
yeah.
I'm sorry, but J.K. Rowling's had the nerve to do what she do and say what she say, given the platform she has. Like, it just proved to me exactly how ignorant and racist she is, how bigoted she is, and how s- they're so terrified of things that they don't even know. Right? Go and talk to go and have a conversation with an individual who is trans. I have to tell you, I have two friends whose family are going through this now with their children. And what's interesting is to hear the perspectives of both these parents, one being very religious, one not so religious, and yet they both said, "This is my child. I
Yeah.
have to do what I can to support my child." Right?
The-
So they, as parents, that not many parents will do that. When you look at how many youth are on the street, go and ask them which community they identify with. They'll tell you it's typically the LGBTQ2S plus. Okay. So my question to many people and to parents is, number one, I've never had children, and that's one of my regrets is I've never been able to have children. But the reality is, for the people who were given the gift of children, to throw your child away because of who they really are, what kind of a parent are you?
okay, so they're talking on that point that you just made just now. There is a creator on here. I wish I knew his name. It was last year when the election in the US was going on, and it was just a whole bunch of like big time creators. He said, and this was verbatim. I'm trying to remember because it was last year and my brain's not the greatest, so please just bear with me. The
Mm-hmm.
creator said, if you as a parent have a child in the 2SL LGBTQIA plus and you're going to throw away your child because they came out to you, and you kick them out of the house and you disown them, the child you had did not fail you. You failed them as a parent. Because as a
Yes.
parent, you're supposed to give your child everything they need, not what they want, everything they need with their physical being. You need to nurture them. You should not be your best. You should not be your child's first bully. You need to be your child's first supporter. You need to
Exactly.
love your child regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say this to the day I'm in the ground or in a box, wherever I end up at. The thing is, if you are going to tell me that I'm wrong for loving my child no matter who he is, no matter who he is authentically, you can kiss my rosy behind because I do not care. My child is my child. That is a part of me. That is an extension
Mm-hmm.
of me. I
And
love my child regardless.
there are so
Well,
many parents though that believe in their parental rights and treat
yep.
their kids like it's their property.
Exactly. And that's where the problem is we don't treat human beings, especially women, First Nations people, Indigenous people, people of color, right? Those who are vulnerable, we don't treat them with the same idea that they're human, that they're not property, right? And that's given what I've done from my living, my profession. Do you know what I mean? Like, I see humanity in a different way because my job is really easy. I ask people for money to support an organization that does good work, right? But I also know that we don't solve social problems if we don't attack them the way that they need to be attacked. We need to be solving these problems, not pitting them against each other. It's the same thing. Like, part of the reason my member of parliament didn't get my vote, she refused to vote against the banning of gay conversion therapy in this country when it's
Ooh.
dangerous. Okay.
My conservative, he's the same way, Bob Zimmer. You betcha. Yep.
Yep. Mine was Tracy Gray. And I said to her point blank, what you do not understand, Tracy, is that you never went and had a conversation with a family that made the wrong choice. And because they made that wrong choice, that child never came back to them. Right? You never went and had that conversation because you, as this straight white woman who thinks that you know better, you decided, but you had the responsibility to the constituents. And I'm going to tell you, not all your constituents are straight.
Right. Yeah. Good for you.
Seriously, man.
Yeah.
And we're
exactly.
talking about parenting and
Yep.
having that capacity. And there's a lot of good spaces in this world, a lot of bad ones, but that love, that conditioning, that watching your role models, that begins at home.
Yeah.
That begins at home, because there are kids that go through a lot
Yep.
of crap and they are not bullies at all. And there's
Nope.
kids that have a pretty easy life. A lot of these, school pew pew guys are living in the suburbs. They got a free car, computer, a console. They got free Wi-Fi, video games, and they don't have a job. They're very entitled, and they're not taught really any responsibility or anything. And there's kids out here working in their teens, helping their
Exactly.
family survive. And those are some good kids.
Yeah.
And they would
I
never
can't list
be
this.
bullied.
Sorry. I thought
You
you
know,
were
I
so
get
done.
it.
talking about having the resources to raise a child. I mean, lots of us have a lot more support. Some of us don't. I don't have kids. I don't want them, but I try and be a good auntie. I always try and be, I've got trans kids in my life. I've got, we don't know, maybe non-binary in the future. We don't know what they're doing. They're doing their thing, long hair, nails. You do your thing. And, I just try and be a cool auntie. And they go like, I don't ever want to have babies. And I go, hey, auntie doesn't have babies. You can have pets. You can have houseplants. You can have a goldfish. You can run machines. I'll get you a job. You can be you can be a vet and take care of animals. Like, you can do anything you want. And if you've got support, it helps. But you need to have that nurturing and that understanding, I think, in yourself to have kids,
Well, not just that, and you have to understand that if you decide to have children, you have a responsibility to give them the nurturing and the growth and the care that they need, right?
Absolutely.
And
takes a
I'm not
lot.
saying that everybody has children under those circumstances, because we know that that's the case. But the reality is, to not give them the supports that they need, right? Like, part of the reason we see generational problems that we keep seeing after generation is because nobody's willing to talk about the issues. Do you know what I mean? Like, my parents were young when they got married, 18 and 20. They had 4 children by the time they were 25 and 27, right? My father had very little education, but he was one of the smartest people I ever knew, because he was just kind. And he taught us to be kind. And what he always said to me is, you treat the janitor like you would treat the president. They're the same people and they're doing the same work.
Absolutely.
They're just doing differently. And that's how we were raised. But we were also, I was lucky to grow up in Winnipeg and have a pretty decent parent who understood that. And, having a brother who is a special needs individual, right? A diverse ability that makes him different, but it makes him capable. And the support that the people have helped give him his entire life, right? My parents always told us, we don't know anybody else's battle, and to even place judgment on a battle you know nothing about isn't fair.
That's right. Just in mindful of time too, and all the folks on the panel, I want to just give everybody else an opportunity to chat about whatever is pressing issues for them. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to turn it back over. We'll let Curtis in the top, if you wanted to
Go for
comment or add anything.
Hello,
Please,
everyone.
because I want everybody to have a chance to add to the conversation. If you want to go to another topic,
Just there's so many things that happened. Like, God, it's been so long, and so many things have happened.
I know.
I'm so surprised about Jagmeet Singh. The NDP. That was just like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And the Bloc lost a lot of stuff. Like, this whole election, everything just changed so much. And it just, the election, it just. The Liberals won, and the Conservatives gained a lot of seats too. And Billy Morin was elected, as a First Nations, a Conservative. We could talk about so many things, and the election went so many ways. And now we have a Liberal government that's almost a minority, but almost a majority. And I don't think they want to. They're not going to ally themselves with anyone. Like, with the NDP as a group, they're just going to kind of do what they're doing, which is interesting. So we're at where we're at politically. I'm surprised that the NDP, didn't do as well as they did. It's just maybe they'll have new leadership now, and the NDP was once a force in this country, like our third force of politically, and they could have become a government at one time. But it's just things happened, and we're at where we're at, and I guess people can analyze things, but it's just the way. Things south of the border have influenced things in Canada, like how people voted and everything. And I believe the king is coming, and that's an opportunity for First Nations people to renew those covenants of the treaty and remind them, of that.
Yeah. He must have had to take a call. So, I'm curious. I was glad he brought up Billy Morin though, because I wasn't sure if he'd got his seat. I figured he did because it's Alberta and he ran Conservative. But I'm curious about how, like, I've seen already. I have friends in Enoch, which is Billy Morin's nation, and I think there's some division going on within Enoch, and people are taking leaves of absence from work, and it's probably, I think him running in that for the Conservative Party caused some dissension within the nation. But it's only speculating too. So
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I don't think PP should be allowed to go to Alberta after what he did.
oh,
Well, exactly.
Like, he lost his
one
seat.
member gives up his seat, so if he can run in a riding that he's not from, then I think every Canadian should be able to vote in that riding. Then,
right? Oh, that's a good point.
I agree. That would be a great point.
oh yeah, I mean, he can just pop in and just get votes. Well, then we should be able to go there and vote for who we want in that riding. Then,
Where's
as
my
Canadians.
charger?
Well,
You know?
when I looked at how he lost his riding, I thought back to when he went to help the convoy. Like, he did that in the city of Ottawa, which is his riding is a part of that city.
Yeah.
And rather than stand up for the people that live, work, and have their lives there, do you know what I mean? He stood with people who were trying to occupy their city.
Absolutely.
And don't forget
came
that
back on
there
him.
was children that, because of that blockade, children missed cancer appointments.
Yeah,
Little
exactly.
children missed cancer appointments. Like, what are you guys doing?
It's awful.
And the fact that he gets a do-over, because that's exactly what this is.
Exactly.
Complete garbage.
We've got Addicted Bear back, so let's give Addicted Bear a chance to join the conversation. Welcome back.
Hi, thanks for having me back up. Sorry, my internet gets wonky when I talk politics for some reason.
Are you on Starlink?
No,
Sam?
I'm
Musk.
Alberta, so does that say it? Probably my area, because I have motorbike neighbors too. Ugh. I actually came back up because I was chatting with Gideon earlier, and I'm trying not to let my emotions, but she gave a really good idea. We were talking about houseless and I can't remember the whole topic, but she was suggesting that, for communities like I'm Lethbridge area, we have a lot of old schools and land that had schools. We could use that land and make them into new schools and like new houses, and they might be a lot of rural, but if we did it right, like, I don't know if you know where Coaldale is, but it's like between Lethbridge and Tabor.
Yeah.
That's where I was raised. And like, there's a lot of little schools, like there's a ready-made school. And that was what popped in my head. That school would be perfect to be like rebuilt into, like, I'm not gonna say commune, but like the step up houses. Like, if we wanted to do a step out in like a good area for addiction and to get people like one step in. I'm not explaining this right. She did really good down there. I hope you get my gist.
I think I know where you're going. It's kind of like what do they call it when you leave a treatment and you go into housing afterwards, like sober living, that kind of thing?
And if you did it right, you could have like training, like
here comes
training facilities, so people could do like schooling there. And I can't explain it.
That's a great idea. There's a habitat in Grey Bruce that works with a First Nations community. So they did tiny homes as part of their training because they want to go into the building industry. And so the government of Ontario and the municipality gave them a grant to help these students build these homes, right? And then what was really neat and cool about it was that the First Nations community just outside of Grey Bruce said, you know, if you guys aren't going to use them, can we have them? And they had planned to let them have them no matter what. And what they use them for is the temporary addictions program.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
if they're going through like a 36 day or 46, and they're used specifically to house those individuals who are going through treatment programming, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's incredible.
And
But
having
Use the buildings that are already empty. Like, update them, put
yeah,
some dividers in, but
yep,
don't just throw people in a building. Apply the services.
Right.
Have a staff nurse on, like, that's there 24/7. Have security that can break up disagreements and stuff where they
Have
don't
an
have to
elder.
tranquilize them.
Have an elder
Like,
there.
yeah, have job boards, job training, have how to grow your own food. Like, you can have people learning all the things that we've lost
Absolutely.
not
so
just
easily,
And
but they
as
don't want
someone,
to do that.
as someone that
Chime in for a minute, if everyone. So we can let Curtis talk. Go ahead, Curtis.
I want to bring up one point. We had the most amount of Indigenous MPs elected in this election from all parties. I think there's 11 or more. So,
Yes.
and this is the most that
Yes.
Indigenous people have voted and come out and voted in history. Like it was, we made history. We influenced a lot of ridings. Like,
Yeah, there's a few in Manitoba as well, northern
I'm
Manitoba.
proud. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, I was very happy with the representative of Manitoba.
Mhm.
He is a leader.
yeah.
I want to just bouncing off of what Gideon and Addicted Bear were talking about with housing. It was interesting when I saw Stephen Harper speaking last week. He said to this room full of First Nations people that the public service isn't even fully working since COVID because they haven't, they still have a blended workplace. My daughter is a federal public servant, and they're required to work in the office 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week. But he brought this up and made it sound like public servants are working. They need to get back to work. They haven't worked since COVID. But they've never put back the workspace the way it was pre-COVID. So now they have shared workspaces. You can't even have a chair. If you have ergonomic requirements, like you have to carry your laptop back and forth and your keyboard and your mouse. And I thought, why wouldn't we have, as a society, used some of these vacant buildings after COVID? Because we now have all proven that we're capable of working from home and being productive. We could have used those buildings to house some folks.
Exactly.
Create housing.
Oh,
What a
and
lot
working from home, if they're upset about, we've got so many people working in the public sector. Well, if they're working from home and you're not paying for an office space, isn't that saving you money?
Right.
It's saving
and
the government.
guess what? We have available space to use for other things that the community needs. Wouldn't that make sense?
Right. And the greenhouse gases. Think about the greenhouse gases emitted for these people commuting back and forth that don't have.
Exactly.
Well,
There's
because
so
there's
many layers.
no public transit. It's not like we have good public transit in space, like they're using high-speed railways or they're using the bus. No, they're all driving their car or truck individually.
Exactly. Well, it's interesting because this was the same Stephen Harper when I worked at Habitat in Northern Ontario, who actually sold the Habitat there Parks Canada offices for $1.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was part of Habitat Thunder Bay when that happened because it was in Marathon, Ontario, right? And which was 3 hours north from where we were, but it was the first time that affiliate would be able to build outside of the city of Thunder Bay, right? But they sold us 2 Parks Canada houses for $1 in Marathon. And what was really interesting is he got rid of a lot of property that the government of Canada owned. It's the same thing, like Habitat Canada has been asking about some of the abandoned military bases that have barracks on them, right? Because those can turn into housing for seniors.
But they want to force the homeless people to join the military, and they're going to offer them, you're going to get 3 meals a day and clothes on your back and shelter, but you have to join the military.
We had Capion Barracks sit vacant for years, and then the First Nations Reserve bought it a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at what happened in the city of Winnipeg. They sold the PMQs.
Is this real? What Gideon just said? Like they're trying to enlist?
Yes, it was a recommendation.
Yeah, it's going
It's a
around our
stupid
area right
recommendation.
now. Their solution is to have the homeless people and the drug addicts to join the military because it will get them clean and teach them discipline.
And
Yeah,
weren't we
explain.
just talking about the
Holy.
vulnerable being exploited? Weren't we just talking about vulnerable communities being exploited? Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Right?
And let's not even talk about the fact that the military has their own problems with trauma and PTSD.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's add to these people, right? Like the ones that are experiencing houselessness, substance abuse, because they probably had some trauma in their life previously. But let's enlist them into the military now and send them off to war so we can traumatize them again.
May I
Yeah,
address a comment?
and give them pew pews.
Yeah, may I address a comment here? We've got one. Wow, how dare the condition for giving a homeless guy is that he has to have a job. I'm going to tell you something. I was homeless in my teens, and now I run heavy equipment, and I'm taking my first year heavy duty mechanic. And you know what? Had I not had housing given to me and not had support and advocacy to get a home, to get a job, because I'm going to tell you, buddy, I applied for over 200 jobs as a homeless person. You cannot get one. Right. If they see that your address is usually downtown in a downtown space that's mostly commercial, they know you don't live in a home or apartment. You cannot get a job, buddy. Gonna guess that you've never been homeless, and now I'm gonna probably go and pay more taxes than you make in a year. But keep talking, because that's not how that works.
You can't get a bank account. So how are you going to get paid nowadays?
Exactly.
You can't get a bank account.
How do you
can't
charge your
get
phone?
a job. You can't get
Have
a
a
car
shower.
loan.
Like,
shower. How do you charge your phone? How do you charge your phone if you're on shift work? Say you're doing housekeeping at the hospital. How do you charge your phone to have your shift?
And the fact that he thinks that a homeless person needs a job, first and foremost, we don't understand why that person may be shelterless.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
there are many reasons that a person might be living shelterless, and for anybody to say that the only value he has is if he has a job, I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to be polite about it. You have no friggin' idea what you're talking about, and quite frankly, you're an asshat.
Yeah.
I was clean. When I was homeless, I was clean. And I worked as a kid. I babysat. I had a paper route. I did people's driveways with my quad. I house sat. We did lawns. You betcha. I worked as a kid. I had more jobs before I was like 12 years old than a lot of people have had in their life. Like, I always worked. It has nothing to do with work ethic. I can tell you that. I was mentally ill. I was seriously, deeply mentally ill.
I'm so glad that you're with us today and you're sharing your experiences.
And look, and you're sharing that lived experience because it's the only way anybody else learns or at least can talk about something like that is if they know somebody else might.
What the new person is?
Yeah, we have a new guest, Immortal. So welcome, Immortal, and tell us how old you are for TikTok reasons, please.
Oh, he dropped.
That's not. All right. Well,
can I respond to something earlier?
Sure, go ahead. I'm going to just fill my water up. I'll be right back. I'm listening, though.
Okay, good, because I need your advice on this one. Because we suggested the schooling and everything, and I mentioned learning computers, and Sasquatch said that the IT's overrun. But computers isn't just learning IT. Computers is learning how to use your phone, how to be able to fill out a job application. And the reason I suggested it is because why can't, if we're going to do it so that somebody coming off the streets is looking for a job, what happens if they are smart at computers and they are not good at a trade? Like, we have to be able to make it so everything is accessible so that if we're going to do it and we're going to, because
so I just want to make a point on that. So I took a course when I was on disability because I couldn't get a job at the time with my housing situation, and either through Work BC, they will send you to kind of short term, they're like job search and kind of low level computer courses to teach you to use computers for daily life. What I'm talking about is if someone wants to go into like tech for 4 years in university and go into that field is so oversaturated, and AI is going to take a lot of those jobs. What I'm saying is, I was recommending that person try and take a job that's going to have a better outcome for them in the future and do a bit of work search research. I absolutely agree with you. I know that with my mom used to do the Council of Seniors, and we had computer literacy and phone literacy courses that were free. and they absolutely, everyone should have access to that. And usually at the shelter, they'll have a computer, and the advocates will help you use it. There were older folks when I was there, and they would help the ladies use it. They were great. But I'm talking like, I wouldn't recommend going into the tech field right now. And also, it's not just Canada you're competing with. I'm an operator. It's who's in my town. There's so much talent all over the world, and countries with better education in tech. I wouldn't compete with them. That's a very big pond with a lot of big sharks. And a lot of these kids now are taking it and they have no job. That's all I'm saying, is that I'm just saying, go into the trades. We need tradesmen. There is so much vacancy in tech. We're flooded, and it's going to be a smaller pool. AI is taking over big time. There's not going to be a lot of jobs there.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's
Good point.
just taking
Sorry,
over.
just
It's
to
crazy.
So I'm
Yeah,
curious, though, Sasquatch and Ryan, if you're both, I don't know if Ryan, if you're an operator too, but do you feel that there's a potential in the future for AI to even start being operators of equipment? Like
you still have to have an operator use the remote control, so that person would still have to understand how to operate that and have the competency. They use it
I'm
right
not
now.
in the trades, but I'm a supervisor at my job, so I oversee like 50 employees.
oh wow, that's awesome. That
Yeah.
HQ, having employees is challenging.
Oh yeah.
I just want to
Definitely.
address this person in the comments again. Food and shelter should be free. Provided by who? You don't earn those things. Again, it has nothing. People's right to have shelter and food and water is not determined by how much money they can make. So if I worked for 40 years as a logger and I broke my neck tomorrow and I was in a wheelchair, I don't deserve food and shelter.
Right.
Or if I could never work. So if you have a child that's born with a disability and they may not be able to work, does that child deserve to live outside and freeze in the cold?
Good point.
Or
That's
like
how
me.
these people,
Like,
as a person with disabilities, that's how they have been telling us it's eugenics. If
and
you
that's
can't be like me, look like me, you don't need to live.
that's
Oh my
like
God.
to address that. It's true. What about me? Like, I can't work anymore because of my disability. My body is shutting down every day, but I worked so hard for so many years, so I'm not allowed to have food and shelter. And who's going to provide it for me? Well, what am I
That's what
going to
the
do? I
government
can't
is
work.
for. People
Yeah,
are
like,
confusing government as this corporation thing. No, the purpose of government is to care for the citizens. If the citizens are sick and decrepit and dying in the streets, how are we going to defend ourselves if we are under threat? It doesn't make any sense to try and link basic human needs with having some kind of job. And it's disgusting how people are coming into comments and commenting, well, if you're not working, then you deserve to go hungry.
Well, then what are billionaires doing getting subsidies then? Because I never hear these guys come out and say, hey,
Exactly. The
Elon Musk needs to
parasite
get up at
class.
5 a.m., pull up your bootstraps. Elon, get on those steel toes. You better go get behind a piece of iron, and you better go pull 12 in a bulldozer. Yeah, you better get on a construction site and be a laborer. No, the people that are sitting on their ass and taking money are not disabled people. They are not people that are on social security or on social assistance. Those are billionaires. Those are billionaires, honey. You need to look at how much money goes to billionaires, because Elon Musk, just his trillions, just his subsidies, not his government contracts, his trillions in subsidies, that's more than all the welfare that's ever been given out in the entire history of the world. So get fucked.
And what kind of society would it be if we just pushed aside the people that didn't fit whatever conformity we think is prescribed? That's awful.
People on disability right now are living off of at most $1,800.
Can you imagine?
A month?
I don't even get that.
Yeah, it's 14 something in BC, and look at the rental prices. Like in Mackenzie, which is a very small town, there was an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, $1,650, nothing included. So a disabled person, and there's no 1-bedrooms available, so they wouldn't even make rent.
So that's the same here in Ontario. I make 14 something. Okay. I live in a basement of somebody's house in a tiny room that is probably as big as being, like, it's so small. And I pay $900 to be here.
And so you're left with $500 to pay for your other needs.
like for my car insurance, for my phone, for
Medication.
food.
And then if you're disabled, so people say just walk. What if someone's disabled? So now, yeah, or you know what? I have friends that have trauma because they've been hurt out in public. You know what? If they are not able to go out and sit at a bus stop downtown, it's not going to be emotionally viable for them. They need a car, and that is safe for them. And I will gladly pay my taxes for that, for them to be able to have a car and have dignity and be able to go to the store and get their cat food and their heavy dog food. Because what, they're going to lug that on the bus?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God!
Commenter
So
is
people.
just terrible. Can we get a remove?
No. I just
please?
want to ask him something. Hey, he's just lazy. Let me know when's the last time you pulled a 20-hour day at 2 jobs running equipment? I've pulled many. How about 18 in a skidder? Guessing none.
And
Guessing none.
I'm going to tell
guessing he
him
has real
exactly about
estate.
me.
Oh, okay.
Who is
Okay.
it?
I'm
See the
disabled,
comment.
and
His
I
name
can
is
I
Rhonda.
can barely leave my house to go to doctor's appointments
Rwanda?
because of my trauma and anxiety and
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
if I could, I'd kick that person. And yeah, I'm letting my emotions get ahead of me, but I'm sorry.
So
No.
here's what happened to me, okay? When I have been in chronic pain since I got my knee replaced, and then I got cancer, so I had a major surgery there. So I've had a ton of surgeries, but I still worked. I went to work up until February. February, finally, my body shut down, and I couldn't stand anymore. I couldn't greet my customers the way I wanted to. I couldn't do my job fast enough. So I lost everything. And I have been sitting in this basement crying every night because I just want to be human again. But I
Yeah.
can't be. You know, I can't be human anymore. And
Like
I went to
You
my
are human.
doctor's today, and we're back at square one to find out what's wrong with me now. You know, and
I don't know your health situation, but my mom started having stuff like that, and it was inflammation. So I don't know anything about your story, but push for yourself and keep advocating for yourself because it took a long time. Like, that's why I'm here. I did not want to move here. I moved here because my mom could not get out of bed. She couldn't lift her arms. She lost her job. Thank
Yeah.
God my dad works and makes okay money, and that they've got a cheap little house. Like, thank God they're okay. But if my mom didn't have that, I don't know where she'd be. She'd be living with me in some 1 bedroom somewhere, maybe if she could get disability, but they could not nail down what she had. There was no name for it. So how do you get disability status? So
and that's the
if there's
thing.
something, inflammation, please don't give up and keep vouching. I'm going through that too. Vouch and advocate for yourself, and don't let them bully you, and keep fighting to find out what's wrong
Yeah.
if you can.
But my
Retired nurse
doctor's
here.
great.
Keep track of everything. Every
Yeah.
symptom, every time. What it feels like, when it happened,
God, I wish.
what you took to relieve it. Because doctors
Yeah.
can only function on the data that you give them. The more
But my
data you
doctor,
give them, the better they can
unfortunately,
do.
I'm going to say this. You guys are getting a great doctor down there in Alberta. Her name is Dr. Rockwell. She's coming to Alberta
Oh,
because of her husband. So I'm losing her. She's a wonderful
I'm
doctor.
sorry.
She is the
Aw.
first doctor who finally, I went into her office and I started crying and I said, I can't do it anymore. I can't take the pain. So she
Yep.
started me on my quest where I am now. But what has happened is I can't eat like a lot of stuff because stuff happens afterwards, and it happens within minutes, like within hours. And so and they can't find out what's wrong with me. And so now I have to go see if my cancer's back. So it's just been hard, and I live on disability, but they want me to get a job, and I'm like, how?
No.
Because I can't get permanent disability.
Yeah.
A lady in the comments said, is there any way she could do video calls for you? I don't know how that works if she's going to another province, but we have Addicted Bear goes, could she do video calls for you?
Unfortunately not, but she is sending me to a very nice doctor, and I've met her, and she has advocated that you need to stick with this woman and help her. So because the last doctor I was with, you know what he said to me when I went to him and I said I was in pain? He said, it's only because you're an Indian and you want pain meds for drugs.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that story! I remember one time
I said rugs, just so you know.
Hey, we have someone in the comments right now, and we should remove them, that said, how about stop eating junk food and get exercise, stop being a victim? Can we get rid of this person?
Who is it?
Frank Dominic 9. With a blank profile picture.
And using Frank Dominic's name? Oh no, it's a different.
Yeah, isn't that disgusting?
Yeah.
He would love to see that, wouldn't he?
Thank you.
I'm gonna
Yes,
block him
Melanie.
completely.
No, you need to go. That's disgusting.
And you know,
That's not
I've had this same thing happen to me. I remember one time I was living with a guy on his reserve, and I went to the adjacent town because I was sick, and I'm waiting in the room for the doctor to come in, and he comes in, opens the door, and as soon as he sees me, he pulls his prescription pad. What do you need? He says to me. I'm like, wow.
Like, how freaking rude is that?
I'm like, excuse me?
That's what just happened for me. So I went to the ER, and so I have chronic inflammation. It's toasted my pancreas. I've got type 1.5 diabetes, which when I go there, because I'm over 200 pounds, they still try to treat me as a type 2 when I'm clearly not. Thank God for diabetic nurses. But I go in there and I say, I've got like inflammation on my ribs. They get swollen, they get red, and I go, every time I move, it's painful and it swells, and I keep, like, one cough, it was ripped for 3 months. I was crying in that loader when I'd have to bump or turn around or climb.
Yeah.
And so it healed for a month, and then it just happened again. I helped push my neighbor's Camaro on a trailer. I shouldn't have done it, but anyway. So I go in and I tell her, so what she suggests is, oh, it's probably allergies, and gives me a puffer and a cream for my finger. And I go, so I have problems with my pancreas, my organs, swelling I've had on my brain. My skin has collagen issues, and now I've got collagen issues on the connective tissue on my ribs. You think that might all be connected with inflammation? And I go, where am I not getting blood work done? Are we going to do any testing? Do I have lupus? I've got a rash on my cheeks. Hello? Like, I'm an operator, and I can put this together. I go, I've got GERD, I've got horrible acid reflux, and I go, all of these things are related. And I go, and so I've got a doctor's appointment, and I'm going to push her. She's a really nice lady, but she's not doing jack shit right now. And I'm going, I want answers on what I have, and I want to make medication to stop this inflammation, because I need to go wrench on trucks. I cannot be pulling muscles in my ribs when I'm lifting wheel hubs off of a semi-truck. This isn't going to work.
And
I'm doing this.
There's another guy in the comments talking about, well, overweight does that to your organs. Okay.
Probably same.
So do chemicals they apply to our foods.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
And pesticides and fertilizer.
See, that's my favorite thing about this whole thing is people think that we sit at home and all we eat is junk food. I sit at home, I barely eat.
Yeah.
You want to know what my meal prep
can't
has
move.
been for the last week? My meal prep for the last week, I did lettuce wrapped tuna with no mayo and sugar-free chili sauce. I did brown rice, chicken, and broccoli, and then I did sushi, and I put my rice in the fridge because that reduces the carb content. So you come over here and check out my macros. I'll drop you my, I track my food and my calories.
Exactly.
So you let me know.
Thank you.
You should see what I eat. I eat hummus with sweet peas and carrots dipped in it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what you eat. I'd love to see what that guy eats, because I know it's not as good as what I eat.
And that's what I'm
Green
saying.
tea.
Like, they assume that because we're overweight, we automatically eat too much. I'm sorry, honey. I don't eat too much. I'm overweight because my body doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I can't go for a walk.
These are some
I take insulin, and I'm perimenopausal. I'm like under 2,300 calories, and I'm pushing 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I still walk, but I can't go to the gym right now with my ribs. But I still walk. I still get exercise, and I'm under 2,300 calories. So yeah, try having perimenopause, buddy, and try taking insulin.
And I'm so
it's hard.
People who want to
Sorry,
forget
I'm menopausal and
it's terrible. I'm almost done. But all these folks that want to make assumptions about things are really, that's such a problem. But you know what, folks, it's almost 8:00. So on my time anyways, it's time to wrap it up. And I hear my husband pulling up the driveway because I'm sitting on the deck tonight. If we want to just do a couple minutes or a minute each, and we'll go through the panel and say some closing remarks. Oh, here comes my dogs running to go see the dad. Sorry. So I'll mute, and we'll start with Sasquatch, and we'll go through the panel, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to say that, just on this topic that, you know, you don't know what people are going through with their weight, with their health, with their housing situation, with their work situation. You have no idea. And if you want to talk about it, you better go and ask them first and get educated. And if you're going to talk on that subject, you better be an expert in your field, or you better have lived it. Otherwise, you're not going to overtalk someone's lived experience and invalidate it. That's crazy.
Thank you, Sasquatch. I totally agree with you. I feel, I don't know what happened to empathy in this world, but it seems to be lacking. Anyways, ZB, my dear.
It's not lacking. That's intentional. That's the way the system is designed. I wanted to go back to trans rights. I don't know if you guys follow Crutches and Spice, but you most definitely should be following Crutches and Spice, because she is I've been following her since I got on this app. Anyway, she was calling it and she said, you got to watch when they come for trans rights, because that's when they're going to start to come for everybody else's rights. Trans people are the first people that they always go for first. And in my educated guess, again, I don't have my degree in sociology just yet, but it ties back to the fact that gay people cannot produce the next generation for capitalism. We are the resource, and they cannot get ahead without us creating more resources. We are the worker bees, and they need us to do that. That's why they come down on trans people so hard, is because of the fact that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is reproducing the next generation. But that's my little sociology rant. But can we talk later after Treaty Bird?
Yes.
Maybe not today, but like later.
Yeah, sure we can. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, CB.
Good night.
All right, Crazy I Am.
Hi. I just want to say, there's two things that is really good is also us Indigenous people. We have a different metabolism because our body was raised differently. And so all of this food that we have is not good for us because this isn't how our body was designed. But I also want to say I am with all of my people in Alberta. I'm there with you in spirit. I'm fighting for yous. I have petitions out for you to get that person out. So stay strong. We're all behind you.
Thank you for that. And we need all of that support that we can get. And I was so pleased because I did do a couple videos on this whole separatist movement. And there's so many people across Canada that have said the same thing. So I appreciate you all for that. Thank you, Crazy AM. And I agree with you about the food thing. Our ancestors ate protein, fats, and berries.
I guess touching on the food, if anybody watched Treaty Roads, APTN did it. They touched on residential schools, and the Canadian Health Guide was actually designed on Native children lacking vitamins and such. That's how they developed the Canadian Food Guideline, by giving our kids lacking them nutrients and vitamins to see with the other children how they would benefit. So that's how our food system was developed. Just want to touch base with that.
Thank you for that reminder. That is absolutely true and disgusting. A disgusting piece of
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
bringing.
I guess for tonight, great conversation from everybody. I enjoyed it. I followed you, so I hope to be back and have more great conversations with everybody else on this panel and other panel members. And
Thanks, Ryan.
That's all from me.
Ryan, follow my account. I'm Treaty 6 Birder.
I did follow you.
Okay, because this is Beaver Network, but I have my own page, Treaty 6.
Okay, I'll follow your own page then.
Okay, thanks. I'll watch for you. Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for joining the discussion. Okay, Addicted Bear.
I just want to thank you for having this every week and being willing to teach us and making it so we can ask the questions that I'm going to say I wouldn't know where else to ask them, and you allow me to ask it a way that I learn with my brain wonky. So thank you all, and thank you all for your ideas.
Thank you so much for joining us, because this community has become so important to me, and I know I've heard from others too, that it's such a blessing that we have found each other through this community and on TikTok, and it helps keep us sane, I feel. And thank you for coming and asking questions and joining the conversation. And you're welcome every Monday when I'm hosting the show. All right, Gideon, we'll turn it over to you, and then I'll close the show off.
Yeah, leading off of the empathy, conversation. Anyone that wants to talk about anything social services, please, 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 for the love of whatever deity you praise, look up the pyramid of human needs first, and then reflect upon that, and then change your opinion. Because if humans don't have the bare essentials, they cannot function. Addictions and substance abuse are not a disease, it is a symptom. We need to stop treating it like it's a disease. It is a symptom. And I'll end it at that because I love everybody and I want everyone to go to sleep and have good dreams tonight.
Well, thank you for that. And, I can't disagree with you about that substance abuse. And, I kind of wondered about that position of disease as well. And I think maybe it's just because we have struggled with labeling it. And I too myself have struggled with substance abuse. So it's a hard road, but some of us, we get through it, right? And I just appreciate you all. And I appreciate the great conversation we had tonight. And for all of your allyship as we're moving through these weird times here in Alberta with trying to separate and stuff. And hopefully with Mark Carney as our prime minister, we can continue to move forward quickly, and maybe he'll help us resolve some of the issues with Danielle Smith. But please join me again.
He's in Washington tomorrow to meet
I
with
heard,
Donald
I know.
Trump.
I'm curious to see how that pans out. So
Yeah, exactly.
let's come back next week and we'll talk about this some more. And I really appreciate all of you joining me tonight. Again, I'm Treaty 6 Birder, and thanks again for the great
Treaty 1 here.
Awesome. Well, I'm a Treaty 4 band member, but I live in a Treaty 6 territory, so that's why.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, have a great night. Thanks again.
Yeah, you as well, everybody. Have a good night.
Take care. Stay deadly.
Take care.